Today I want to talk just a little bit about gun safety. And I call this a common sense approach because gun safety really should be common sense. The primary cause of firearm accidents, there are two of them: ignorance and carelessness. Ignorance simply means a lack of knowledge. It means that someone doesn't know about firearms, and therefore, not knowing, they may cause firearm accidents. So ignorance of the rules for safe gun handling, they may not know what the rules are for safe gun handling, or ignorance of the proper and safe way to operate a pistol, or a rifle, or any other type of firearm. So lack of knowledge is one of the primary causes of firearm accidents. The second is carelessness, either a poor or improper attitude, a failure to apply the rules for safe gun handling. They may know the rules, but then they fail to apply them. They're being careless. Also, failure to observe proper procedures for safely operating a pistol, rifle, shotgun, whatever the firearm is. So there is a certain way to safely operate firearms, and if you fail to observe those proper procedures, then you're more likely to have firearm accidents. There is no such thing as an accidental discharge. Negligent discharge would be the more correct term, because accidental implies, oops, it was an accident. Well, accidents happen either from ignorance or carelessness. If you're careless and there's a discharge that you did not intend, that's negligence. That's a negligent discharge. You should have been more careful. If you're ignorant, if you lack the knowledge, then you should not be handling the firearm in the first place. And so again, there really isn't such a thing as an accidental discharge. It is a negligent discharge. So ignorance and carelessness. Elements of firearm safety include a positive attitude, knowledge, and skill. And all three of these are needed to be safe with the handling of firearms. The 3 rules of firearm safety. Number 1, always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. Number 2, always keep your finger off the trigger until ready to shoot. Number 3, always keep the gun unloaded until ready to use. If you observe all 3 of these rules at all times, there will not be a firearm accident. And part of the common sense approach to firearm safety is to teach these rules. Again, remember, knowledge is one of the key elements of firearm safety. So if we don't teach these rules of firearm safety, if we don't know these rules, then how can we be safe in the presence of firearms? Often the firearms, different groups state these rules in slightly different ways. So this is often stated here, the 4 basic safety rules, and we'll compare these to the previous 3. So the 4 basic safety rules, this is taught often in concealed carry classes and those types of things. Number 1 is treat all firearms as if they're loaded. Number 2, always keep your finger off the trigger until your sights are on target and you've made the decision to fire. Number 3, never point a firearm at anything you're not willing to destroy. Number 4, before the decision to fire, be sure of your target's environment, and any other safety hazards. Now let's compare these 4 basic gun safety rules to the 3 that were listed previously. So number 1, treat all firearms as if they're loaded. Well, how do you treat a firearm if it's loaded? Well, if it's loaded, you're not going to point it at anything, right? So look at number 3 here. Never point a firearm at anything you're not willing to destroy. Well, if you're treating a firearm as if it's always loaded, then you will not point it at anything that you're not willing to destroy. So looking back, always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. That covers this rule number 1, treat it as if it's loaded. Never point it at anything you're not willing to destroy. And again, number 4 here, before the decision to fire, be sure of your target's environment, and any other safety hazards. Again, that all has to do with always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. And then number 2 here, always keep your finger off the trigger until ready to shoot. That's basically the same as number 2 here. Always keep your finger off the trigger until your sights are on target and you've made the decision to fire. And then the 3rd rule from this list here, always keep the gun unloaded until ready to use. Okay? And again, even if a firearm is unloaded, you will still obey rules 1 and 2, keeping it pointed in a safe direction at all times, and always keeping your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. There's some other gun safety rules, or range safety rules. Know your target and what is beyond. Once you pull the trigger, you are responsible for where that bullet goes. And so if it goes beyond your target and damages property or anything else, that you're responsible for that. So you should always know what your target is and know what is beyond your target. Second, you need to know how to use your firearm safely. Again, that comes back to knowledge and skill. Number 3, be sure the firearm is safe to operate. And then make sure you know how to safety check to check if it's loaded or not loaded. Number 4 is only use the correct ammunition for your firearm. Number 5 is wear eye and ear protection. Number 6, never use alcohol or drugs before or while shooting. Number 7, store all firearms so they are not accessible to unauthorized persons. For example, children, restricted persons, etc. So make sure they're not accessible. Number 8, never handle a handgun in an emotional state such as anger or depression. If you find yourself in an emotional state like that, make sure that you do not access your firearms. And you may even consider asking a spouse or someone to take those, or give them to your brother to hold on to for a while or whatever. And number 9, keep the firearm unloaded until it's ready to use. Other safety considerations, be a knowledgeable gun handler and user, again, knowledge. Number 2, before starting to clean a gun, be certain it is not loaded. Double check, triple check, make sure that the gun is not loaded before you start to clean. Number 3, cleaning a gun also provides an opportunity to check the proper function of the gun. Number 4, always be sure the gun barrel is free from obstructions. Number 5, when handing a pistol to another person, always be sure the muzzle is pointed in a safe direction, your finger is off the trigger, the action is open, magazine has been removed, and all chambers are empty. Number 6, carry only one type of ammunition to avoid mixing different types. Number 7, if in possession of an old or antique firearm or a gun that is a military souvenir, be sure that it is unloaded. Number 8, never fire at surfaces that can cause a bullet to ricochet, such as water or hard flat objects. Number 9, if a cartridge fails to fire when the trigger is pulled, keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction. Don't attempt to open the action to remove the cartridge for at least 30 seconds. Number 10, if anything unusual is noticed when a shot is fired, such as a difference in recoil or noise, immediately do the following. Stop firing immediately, keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction, keep your finger off the trigger, unload the gun and check to be sure the chamber is empty, and then visually inspect the barrel for obstructions. In the home, firearm safety. You are responsible for teaching your children and any other occupants in the home about firearm safety. So, for example, if you own a firearm or if you are a permit holder, you should be a positive role model for your children. Children should be taught the difference between television, toys, and real life. Children should be taught what to do if they come across a firearm without an adult present. Stop, don't touch, leave the area, tell a responsible adult. Training your children is a very important part of firearm safety, especially if you have firearms in the home. But even if you don't have firearms in the home, they may have a play date with a friend of theirs who may have firearms in the home. And so it's important to always teach your children these rules, what to do if they come across a firearm without an adult present. Stop, don't touch, leave the area, tell a responsible adult. Also, store guns and ammunition so that they're not accessible to unauthorized persons. So either in a safe or with trigger locks or mechanisms that render the firearms unusable. They need to be stored in such a way that unauthorized persons cannot access them. And that includes children, that includes anyone who is a prohibited person, such as a convicted felon, from accessing your firearms. Store guns and ammunition separately in a cool and dry place. And that is just a real quick overview of some common sense gun safety that you can employ. And again, the main causes of firearm accidents are carelessness and ignorance. And if we overcome those two things, then we will be a lot safer around our firearms.